If you are bored by intellectual conversation, you can just pay the bill and leave. Grant said it with a smirk, swirling his sake like he was waiting for a laugh track. And he got one. Preston and Connor, his finance friends from college, chuckled into their napkins. They looked at me like I was a child who had wandered into a boardroom. I did not blink. I did not blush. I picked up the check that sat in the center of the table. I pulled out my phone, scanned the QR code, and typed in $180. That was the exact cost of my omakase set, plus a 20% tip for the chef, who I actually respected. I hit pay. I stood up. Thanks for the option, I said. My voice was level. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back. The silence I left behind was louder than their laughter ever was. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community. The heating in my catering van takes 5 minutes to kick in. For those 5 minutes, I sat in the driver's seat, watching my breath fog up the windshield. The dashboard clock read 11:12 at night. My hands were gripping the steering wheel, but they were not shaking. That was the first thing I noticed. Usually, after a fight with Grant, I would be a mess. I would be crying, replaying every word, wondering if I had been too sensitive or too quiet or just not enough. But tonight, my hands were steady. The cold inside the van felt better than the warmth inside that restaurant. I replayed the scene in my head, but this time, I did not watch it like a victim. I watched it like a chef inspecting a dish that had been sent back to the kitchen. I looked at the ingredients. Grant had invited me to celebrate his promotion. He picked the place. He invited his friends. And then he spent 2 hours explaining marketing algorithms to me as if I could not possibly understand them. When I tried to pivot the conversation to the sustainable sourcing issues in the food industry, Preston rolled his eyes. Grant laughed. That was the moment. He laughed. He called my job glorified burger flipping. I am an executive sous chef. I run a kitchen that serves 300 covers a night. I manage a staff of 20. I balance food costs with razor-thin margins. But to Grant, I was just the help. And that is when it hit me. The clarity was cold and sharp, like a freshly honed knife. Grant did not insult me because he thought I was stupid. He did it because Preston and Connor were there. I realized I had just been part of a psychological game I had not even known I was playing. It is called the dartboard effect. Insecure men, when they get together in groups, often need a common target to bond over. It creates a triangulated connection. By devaluing me, Grant was signaling to his high-earning friends that he was one of them, that he was superior to the woman sitting next to him. I wasn't his partner tonight. I was a prop. I was the social glue he used to solidify his status with the boys. He threw darts at my dignity just to hear them cheer. I put the van in gear. I did not turn toward our apartment. The idea of going back there, to the space that smelled like his cologne and my fabric softener, made my stomach turn. I needed neutral ground. I needed a place where I was not Grant's girlfriend, but Elena Vance. I drove toward the industrial district. I drove to my commercial kitchen studio. It was where I did my prep work for private catering gigs. It was my sanctuary of steel and fire. When I unlocked the heavy steel door, the smell hit me. Roasted garlic, sanitized solution, and cold stainless steel. It smelled like competence. It smelled like the truth. I did not turn on the overhead lights. I just walked to the prep station and turned on the heat lamp. I took my jacket off and hung it by the door. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. I stood there in the half-light and looked at my reflection in the reach-in refrigerator door. I looked calm. I felt dangerous. For 3 years, I had been telling myself that Grant was just stressed, that his ambition made him edgy, that he loved me, even if he had a funny way of showing it. I had been lying to myself. Tonight, he gave me an option. Pay and leave. He thought it was a dare. He thought I would shrink back, apologize, and sit quietly while they made fun of my career. He forgot that I work with fire for a living. I do not shrink. I cook. I took a deep breath, letting the cold air fill my lungs. I was not going back tonight. Maybe I was never going back. The realization did not feel heavy. It felt like dropping a 50-pound sack of flour that I had been carrying up a flight of stairs for 3 years. I was done climbing. I walked over to the dry storage shelf and pulled out a bag of arborio rice. I did not need to eat, but I needed to work. My hands needed to do something other than check my phone. I set a pot on the stove. Shallots, butter, white wine. The rhythm of the kitchen took over. Chop, sizzle, stir. It was muscle memory. It was the only language that never lied to me. As I stirred the risotto, watching the grains turn translucent, I started doing the math. Not the recipe math, the relationship math. I had moved in with Grant 3 years ago. He was launching his tech sales career. He said he needed to keep his liquidity high for investments. So, I paid 60% of the rent. I paid for the groceries because, naturally, I was the chef. I cooked every meal. I packed his lunches. I managed the household logistics because he was too busy changing the world, or at least, selling software that helped other people change it. I thought about the concept of the sunk cost fallacy. In economics, it is the phenomenon where a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. I had treated Grant like a stock I had bought into early. I kept telling myself, just a little more time, just a little more patience. The returns will come. He will mature. He will appreciate me. I had poured 3 years of emotional capital, financial support, and physical labor into a venture that was bankrupt from day one. I stirred the pot, the wooden spoon scraping the bottom. I had been terrified to pour this relationship down the drain because I was afraid of the waste. I was afraid to admit that I had spent 3 years cooking a soup that had spoiled. But looking at the bubbling rice, I realized something else. You do not eat rotten food just because you spent all day cooking it. That is how you get sick. You throw it out, you scrub the pot, and you start over. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against the stainless steel counter. This time I looked. It was a text from Grant. You embarrass me. I stared at the words. 3 words. No apology. No concern for where I was. Just his ego, bruised and demanding attention. He was not worried that his girlfriend was walking alone in the city at midnight. He was worried that he looked weak in front of Preston and Connor. I did not reply. I put the phone face down. I turned off the burner. The risotto was perfect. Creamy. Al dente. I spooned a small portion into a bowl. I ate it standing up, alone in the dark kitchen. It was the best meal I had tasted in years because it did not come with a side of disrespect. But the silence did not last long. My phone lit up again. Then again. A flurry of notifications. I finished the last bite, rinsed the bowl, and dried my hands. I picked up the phone. Grant, come back and pay the rest. The guys are pissed. Grant, are you seriously ghosting me right now? Grant, stop being dramatic. It was a joke. I swiped the notifications away. I was not ghosting him. I was evicting him. But then, a new notification popped up. It was not a text. It was an email alert from my cloud storage provider. Password change request initiated. My stomach dropped. We shared a password manager for the apartment utilities and streaming services. But my professional portfolio, my catering contracts, and my client database were all linked to that same primary email. I opened the app. Another alert. 3 items permanently deleted from folder, portfolio_res. I felt the blood drain from my face. Those were the photos from the governor's struggling gala I had catered last month. They were the cornerstone of my new website. They were my proof of work. Grant was not just texting anymore. He was escalating. He knew exactly where to hit me. He knew I valued my work above everything else. This was not just a breakup tantrum. This was digital vandalism. I opened my laptop, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I tried to log in. Incorrect password. He had changed it. He had locked me out of my own life. A new text came through. Grant, if you want the password, come back and apologize. And bring your credit card. I stared at the screen. The fear vanished. The sadness vanished. What replaced them was a cold, white-hot rage. It was the kind of focus you get when you are working the line during a dinner rush and everything is on fire. You do not panic. You execute. He thought he was teaching me a lesson. He thought he was reminding me who was in charge. But Grant had made a critical error. He forgot that I build things from scratch. I know how structures work, and I know exactly where the weak points are. I did not text him back. I did not get in the van to drive back to the apartment and beg. I opened a new tab on my browser. I typed in the name of the only person I knew who was colder than I was. Sienna. She was not just my best friend. She was a corporate attorney who specialized in intellectual property and contract law. And she hated Grant with a passion that rivaled the heat of 1,000 suns. I dialed her number. It was 12:15 in the morning. She answered on the second ring. Elena, is everything okay? Her voice was thick with sleep, but alert. No, I said. My voice was steady, terrifyingly calm. Grant locked me out of my business accounts. He is deleting my portfolio. I heard the rustling of sheets. I heard the click of a bedside lamp. The sleep vanished from her voice instantly. Where are you? She asked. The studio, I said. Don't touch anything, she ordered. Do not text him. Do not try to reset the password again. I am coming over. Make coffee. I hung up. I looked at the laptop screen, at the blinking cursor of the failed login attempt. Grant thought he was playing a game of chicken. He thought I would swerve. He did not realize that I had already cut the brakes. I walked over to the espresso machine. I ground the beans. I tamped the portafilter. I locked it in. The machine hissed, a sharp, aggressive sound in the quiet kitchen. While the coffee brewed, I thought about the competence threat. I had read about it once. It is a psychological trigger where a narcissist feels hostility toward a partner who displays tangible, undeniable skill. Grant worked in sales. He sold promises. He sold vaporware. He spent his days circling back and touching base. But I made things. I created edible art that people experienced with their senses. At the end of the day, I had a product. He had a spreadsheet. My competence threatened him. My ability to survive without his corporate jargon threatened him. That is why he attacked my work. He wanted to bring me down to his level of abstraction. He wanted to make me powerless. But he forgot one thing. You can delete a file. You can change a password. But you cannot delete the hands that made the work. I poured 2 cups of coffee. Black. No sugar. I waited for the sound of Sienna's car. The night was just beginning. And Grant had just started a war he was not qualified to fight. Sienna didn't knock. She texted here and walked in the moment I unlocked the steel door. She was wearing sweatpants, but her eyes were sharp, scanning the room like she was looking for a sniper in the vents. She didn't hug me. She walked straight to my laptop, set her leather bag on the counter, and cracked her knuckles. Make me a double, she said, pointing at the espresso machine. And tell me exactly what you saw. I handed her the coffee. He changed the cloud password, deleted the high-res folder. I got a notification that he tried to access the client contract archive, but I have 2-factor on that one. Sienna took a sip, her eyes glued to the screen. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Okay, he is not just being a vindictive ex. In the eyes of the law, this is tortious interference with business relations. He is intentionally damaging your economic expectancy. And since he is doing it across state lines via a cloud server, he is flirting with federal cybercrime statutes. She looked at me. Did you give him the password? We shared a LastPass for the utilities, I said. He must have dug it out of the vault. Unauthorized access, she muttered. We can work with that. I am drafting a preservation letter now. If he deletes one more byte, he is destroying evidence. She typed for 10 minutes in silence. I cleaned the espresso machine. The repetition of wiping down the steam wand calmed me. Then, Sienna stopped. We need to secure the physical assets, she said. If he is torching your digital life, he will not hesitate to pawn your physical one. Where are your backups? The hard drives are at the apartment, I said. In the fireproof safe under the desk. And your tools? My knife roll is there. I brought my backup kit to the studio, but my primary set, my custom gyros, they are in the kitchen island. Sienna stood up. Get the keys. We are going on a recovery mission. We took my catering van. It was 1 in the morning. The streets were empty. I drove with the same cold precision I used to plate sashimi. When we pulled up to the apartment complex, the lights were on in our unit. I could hear the bass of a stereo thumping. He is having an after-party, I said, gripping the steering wheel. Good, Sienna said. Witnesses. We took the elevator up. The hallway smelled like stale beer and bad decisions. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. The living room was a wreck. Pizza boxes were stacked on my coffee table. Red plastic cups littered the floor. Grant was sitting on the couch with Preston and Connor, playing FIFA. They froze when they saw me. "Oh, look who crawled back," Grant said, not pausing the game. "Did you bring my money?" I didn't respond. I walked right past Grant and headed for the office nook, dropping to my knees beneath the desk. The safe hung open, empty. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I moved to the kitchen. The magnetic strip where my knives hung, my prized, custom-forged Japanese blades, was bare. My fingers hovered over the vacant space. Those knives weren't just tools, they were art. High-carbon steel, hand-hammered, balanced to perfection. They were worth more than Grant's car. "Where are they?" My voice barely carried. Grant snorted. "Maybe you misplaced them. You're careless like that." Preston chuckled. "Maybe she pawned them so she could afford dinner." I turned slowly. "My knives, my hard drives, where are they?" "I sold them," Grant said with a shrug. "You owed me for the meal. Think of it as collateral." "You sold my property?" "Our property," he corrected. "Possession's basically ownership, babe." Sienna stepped out of the hall, phone raised. "Actually, theft is still theft. And around here, anything over $1,000 counts as grand larceny." "Elena, what were the knives worth?" "5,000, I said, plus 2,000 for the drives." Grant blanched when he noticed Sienna. Lawyer, witness, recording device. But he rallied. "It's a civil issue. We live together. Community property." "Wrong," Sienna said. "She purchased them with business funds. They belong to Vance Catering, LLC. You just admitted to stealing corporate assets." She tilted the phone toward Preston and Connor. "And I'm recording." Grant stood abruptly. "Get out, both of you." I studied him, really studied him. He wasn't intimidating. He was a petty thief in a golf shirt. "We're leaving," I said. "But this is far from finished." As we headed for the elevator, Sienna was already typing. "He said he sold them. He's too lazy to drive to a pawn shop. He must have listed them online. A beat later, found them." She flipped the screen. "An eBay listing. Used kitchen knives, chef set. Buy it now, $800. The photo was taken on my own counter. "He listed $5,000 of knives for $800, I murmured. The insult almost hurts, more than the crime. "Buy them," Sienna said. "What?" "Buy them right now. On your card. The receipt ties him directly to the sale of stolen goods." I purchased them with a tap. "Congratulations," she said coolly. "You just sealed a felony case against your ex." Back at the studio, we built a file. No heartbreak, just evidence. Around 6, Sienna froze. "Did you authorize a charge for $1,250 last night?" "No. I paid $180 at the table." She turned the laptop toward me. "He charged the remainder on your business card at 12:30 a.m. Grant had saved my corporate card in his delivery apps. He had used it to pay for the entire dinner, steak, lobster, his friends' drinks." "That's not only theft," Sienna said, cracking a smile. "That's corporate credit card fraud. Embezzlement. We're well beyond small claims court." "Print everything," I said, "and add the eviction notice."